Thanks, Heather. It's so great to see you taking over MC duties from the old guy who used to do it. Hello, everyone, and greetings from GreenBiz headquarters in downtown Oakland, California. As you can see, it's kind of a lonely place right now, but that doesn't mean we've slowed down even for a hot second. Quite the contrary. We've had an amazing year as we continue to grow and adapt. For starters, we're doubling the number of events we're doing this year from 3 to 6. You'll hear more about that later on in the week. We've continued to grow and adapt to new topics and challenges, as I know you have as well. And what a year it's been. So many changes, so much disruption to our work life, home life, travel, shopping, schooling, eating, drinking, exercising, and pretty much everything else. So many changes, so much heartache, but also some silver linings. Over the past few years, when I speak to audiences, I often talk about how sustainability engenders resilience, the ability to withstand shocks of any kind. And I typically name 5 shocks: political, economic, national security, public health, and of course, climate. I realized sometime this past summer that all of a sudden we were dealing with all 5 of those shocks at once, that we were running the table on systemic shocks. And while we've muddled our way through some of them, and the collective PTSD from 2020 will be around for a long time, we've shown our individual and collective resilience. Finding that resilience amid disruptive and even catastrophic change may be one of the silver linings of 2020. As we come together this week, there are other signs of hope. Vaccinations are making their way into communities and neighborhoods. Maybe some of you have been fortunate enough to have already received a shot or soon will. There's new national leadership in America and a new day for climate warriors and sustainability professionals. At last, there's a team in DC that seems to understand the existential nature of the climate crisis, but also the nearly unlimited potential for families, communities, companies, and institutions of all sizes to seize the opportunities before us, to build back better, as the slogan goes. The idea of a clean, regenerative, circular, healthy, and more equitable economy may still seem far off, but it no longer feels unattainable. So what did we learn this past year? Well, first of all, we learned that things can change in a heartbeat. Our lives can get turned upside down by something so seemingly remote, a virus in a far-off land in a city most of us had never heard of, that it hadn't previously even grazed our consciousness. One day we're doing our thing, going to work, traveling, eating out, sending the kids off to school, and the next, all that's up for grabs. Will we ever feel safe and secure again? I think we will, but it's going to take some time. But why? How quickly things changed. We learned that we can get a lot done without traveling. That's a big revelation for some of us warriors, with all due respect to our friends in the airline and hospitality industries. And while Zoom and Hangout and Skype and all the others will never replace pressing the flesh and breaking bread, all of us have discovered ways to stay connected from afar and to conduct life and business in some new ways that won't likely go away once the pandemic winds down. Things like virtual events, perhaps. We learned that everything is connected. One of the lessons of 2020 is a deeper appreciation of the connectivity among the multiple crises we faced. The COVID crisis, economic crisis, the social justice crisis, the biodiversity crisis, and the climate crisis. What binds them together is that each of them requires individual responsibility and collective action. Each requires systemic thinking, bold commitment, and even bolder action. And that the sooner you act, the better you can head off the worst impacts. And we learned that we need one another to get the work done, of course, but also for the humanity, the collegiality, the partnership, the hugs. Yes, we've been cooped up with our families, sometimes to the breaking point, but we've also felt closer than ever. We've missed being with friends and loved ones, but we've found workarounds that keep us connected. As much as we may be anxious to go somewhere, anywhere, we've learned that we can be together from afar. For all of the challenges we faced, we come together this year as a community that's hung together really well. In any previous year with either a recession or a public health crisis or social unrest or political upheaval, any one of those, we'd see a very different outcome as sustainability professionals. Our teams, budgets, projects, and goals would be cut back or set aside. Sustainability would take a backseat to pretty much anything else. That didn't happen. In general, corporate sustainability commitments remain intact, and many of you have doubled down on net zero carbon emissions, on clean energy purchases, on circular economy initiatives, on ESG and sustainable finance. Here at GreenBiz, we've been continually blown away by the level of commitment and achievement you and your companies have made during this most challenging of years. Along the way, we're also seeing a flipping of the script. It's no longer just a matter of what are the impacts of business on the climate. It's also, what are the impacts of a changing climate on business? We've known for a long time that you can't have a healthy company in an unhealthy environment, that the health of ecosystems affects the health of people, and that the health of people affects the well-being of companies. Suddenly, we're all living that reality. So this is an exciting, pivotal moment. At last, what we do is being valued more than ever. At last, what we do is part of the national conversation. At last, our work is seen as not just valuable, but critical. In that respect, we're kind of the proverbial dog that caught the car. We've been chasing that damn car forever, but suddenly the car slowed down, pulled over, the door opened, and the driver said, "Jump in." So what now? Now that we've caught the car, what are we going to do? Where do we want to go? What are the responsibilities of companies in this moment, but also the opportunities? How can the private sector contribute to building back better, in whatever form that takes, and help create a more sustainable and just economy for all? What does leadership look like in this moment? And what does it take for a company to be seen as a leader in sustainability? What does it take for a sustainability professional to be seen as a leader inside her company? And perhaps most of all, what's the risk of doing too little? I propose that we start thinking about a different ROI for sustainability, the risk of inaction. What's the ROI of waiting months or years before addressing, really truly addressing the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, the water crisis, toxicity crisis, the plastic waste crisis? What's the discount rate for shifting environmental burdens to later generations, our kids and grandkids and their grandkids? What's the benefit of flattening the curve of climate emissions, land degradation, income inequality, and other challenges so that we can head off their worst impacts? These are among the questions that I hope each of you is asking and answering this week. Because, well, let's be honest, most corporate commitments and achievements are insufficient to meet the moment, let alone the future. Incremental change just won't cut it at a time when so many planetary boundaries are being crossed and so many social and environmental indicators are spiraling out of control. We're entering a new era, one in which companies are less able to hide behind their pronouncements and good intentions. Accountability is the new watchword. Action, not announcements, is the new currency. So, how do we seize the moment? When we meet again next year for GreenBiz 22, back of course in Phoenix, Arizona, what will the lessons learned be that you'll be reflecting on? What will you do differently this year so that it's not just a continuation of the past, but the beginning of an impactful new future? As I said, this is an extraordinary moment, and you are all extraordinary people. This event draws the best and brightest in the profession of sustainability. All of you. Now, I've never been a hardcore deadhead, but there's a Jerry Garcia quote that I just love. He famously said, speaking of my boomer generation, "Somebody has got to do something, and it is just incredibly pathetic that it has to be us." Well, with all due respect to Mr. Garcia, I couldn't agree less. Yes, somebody has to do something, but how exciting is it that it gets to be us? What an amazing time for an extraordinary community to be taking on such critical work. I have no doubt that we are ready for this moment and that we are up to the challenge. Our collective future demands nothing less. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to GreenBiz 21.